Shabbat Shalom.
We did that very well together, don't you think?
Practice.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's wonderful to share the Shabbat with you guys again, dear congregation. And boy, do we miss being all together for real. However, we make the best of what we can do, and we have gratitude, and we look onward. It's a great Hebrew phrase, Rabbi Sternfield and everyone. Kadima. Kadima means onward. Kedem.
Yes,
right?
and
Kedem.
in that spirit, onward with our service.
Onward,
Here we
Kadima.
go. Okay.
Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la. Shabbos, 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 Shabbos. Soll sein jeden Shabbos. Shabbos soll sein, Shabbos soll sein. Shabbos auf der ganzen Welt. Ein Shabbos soll sein, Shabbos soll sein. Shabbos auf der ganzen Welt. Als ich will singen Lichadodi, when I sing Lichadodi, sollst du singen Chiribiribim. Als ich will singen Likras Kala, sollst du singen Chiribiribam. Lichadodi,
Chiribiribim.
Likras Kala,
Chiribiribam.
Lichadodi, Likras Kala, Chiribiribiribiribam. Bim bam, chiribim,
Chiribam.
chiribam,
Chiribim.
chiribim bam, bim bam, bim bam, chiribam,
Chiribim.
chiribim,
Chiribam.
chiribim bam, bim bam, bim bam, ay ay, chiribiribiribim bam bam, ay chiribiribiribim bam bam, ay chiribiribiribim bam bam, ay chiribiribiribim bam bam.
I think I did that pretty well, considering
You did.
I don't read music and the words are hard to remember.
The words
but
were very
I
hard
do
to
work on
remember.
it. Well, I have an opening prayer for us that I think is especially appropriate for the times in which we are living. Where has this week vanished? Is it lost forever? Will we ever recover anything from it? The joy of life, the unexpected victory, the realized hopes, the tasks accomplished or unaccomplished, will we ever be able to banish the memory of pain, the sting of defeat, or the heaviness of boredom? On this day, let us keep for a while what must drift away eventually. On this day, let us be free of the burdens that we know will return. On this day, Shabbat, abide. Help us to withdraw for just a little while from the flight of time. Contain the retreat of the hours and the days from the grasp of everyday life. Let us learn to pause, if only for this day. Let us find peace on this day. Let us enter into a quiet world this day. On this day, Shabbat, abide.
Amen.
Amen.
We're going to welcome Shabbat with
Yes,
the lighting
we
of the
are.
Shabbat candles.
It's my turn. I'll get up and I'll light the candles if you'll do the bracha. How's that?
Change places. Ma yafeh hayom, Shabbat shalom. Ma yafeh hayom, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom, Shabbat, Shalom. We join together in our bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu להדליק נר של שבת. אמן. בואי מלאכים, בואי מלאכים, בואי מלאכים. לכלתותי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לכלתותי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי בשלום עטרת בעליו, גם בשמחה ובצוחר תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי כלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. So let us raise our cups of wine or juice with a symbol of joy as we express gratitude for the past week, for our lives, for our health, for home, love, and friendship, and for the many blessings that are ours every single day, though we usually fail to enumerate them. All that and more, for that we chant the Kiddush. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'yahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit ki hu yom techila l'mikra'ei kodesh zecher litziat Mitzrayim ki banu bacharta v'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha b'yahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen. L'chaim,
Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom, to joy and to peace, and we say to your health, to everyone's health.
So we continue now with the Baruch Hu, then the Ma'ariv, Aravim, and then the Shema and Ve'ahavta. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, Le'olam Va'ed.
And if you have your Siddur at home, Mishkan Tefillah,
page 30.
Page 30, join us.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidbaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chachma poteach sha'arim, uv'tuna mishane itim, u'machalif et hazmanim, u'mesader et ha'kochavim, u'mishmerotehem barakia kirsono. Baruch atah Adonai Hama'ariv Aravim. We praise you, Adonai, our God, for whom the evening flows.
Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath, your ruach, guides the sail of our stars.
Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night.
As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for an eternity.
Baruch atah Adonai Hama'ariv Aravim. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows.
Amen. This is an hour of change. Shabbat. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. This is an hour of change. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or shall we kadima, onward, move forward?
This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back or shall we cross over? Baruch atah Adonai Hama'ariv Aravim.
Amen.
Now together we chant Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kavod Malachuto Le'olam Va'ed.
We join in chanting Ve'ahavta, and you find this in your Siddur on page 36. Those of you who know it well, Celia and upcoming Bar Mitzvah, Sydney Hirschman, and Susie and Emily and Florence, so many of you. Join us and sing extra loudly so we can hear you.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzabecha hayom al levavecha Vishinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'beitecha uvlechtecha b'derech uv'shofecha uv'kumecha ukshartam leod al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha uchtavtam Amezuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tiskeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'yitem kedoshim le'elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hoseiti etchem Me'eretz Mitzrayim Lihiot lachem le'Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem
Amen.
And now in English. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might.
Take to heart these instructions which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you rise up.
Bind them as a sign on your hand, and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Thus shall you remember to observe all my commandments, and to be holy to your God. I am Adonai your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai your God. Adonai Elohechem Emet. In a world torn by violence and pain and disease, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us courage to say, Adonai, that there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and your love.
Join us. We're on page 39 in the Siddur, in your prayer book. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets, instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces.
Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace.
Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh nora tehilot, oseh feleh. And we join together and singing the Mi chamocha with Albert at the guitar. Hooray for the virtual Albert. La 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 la. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh nora tehilot, oseh feleh, nora tehilot, oseh feleh. Malechutecha uvanecha, bokayim lifnei Moshe Miriam zehili, anu ve'amiru Adonai, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Adonai, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh nora tehilot, oseh feleh, nora tehilot, oseh feleh. V'ne'emar ki fada Adonai et Yaakov, uge'alo miyad chazak, miyad chazak memenu. Baruch atah Adonai Gol Yisrael, Gol Yisrael, ve'al kol ha'olam. Amen.
Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace and raise us up, our guardian, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel, for your name's sake be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow, and distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. Guard our going and coming to life and to peace. evermore.
Baruch Atah Adonai Haporei Sukkot Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim, and we'll add, spread your shelter of peace over kol ha'olam, all of this world. Amen.
Amen.
We join in singing Hashkivenu. Thank you, Albert, for your virtual playing. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom V'ha'amidenu Shomreinu L'chaim Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom V'ha'amidenu Shomreinu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom V'hamidenu Shomreinu
Now we offer a prayer for peace. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country, that it may always be a stronghold of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among the inhabitants of all lands. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. We praise you, Eternal One, who blesses our people and all people with peace.
Baruch atah Adonai, hamavarech et amo Yisrael ve'et kol ha'amim, and all people.
Shalom.
Shalom. Shalom Rav. This is a new melody for us, and I'm grateful to Albert again for accompanying us. Shalom, shalom, tasim le'olam, ki atahu melech hador, shalom, shalom, question and let me be a little kinder, let me be a little blinder to the faults of those about me. Let me praise a little more, let me be when I am weary, just a little bit more cheery. Think a little more of others and a little less of me. Let me be a little kinder to this brother and this sister who are blinder. Let me praise a little more and be all that I can be. Let me be a little weaker with a brother who is weaker. Think a little more of others and a little less of me. Think a little more of others and a little less of me.
As we do every week, we pause for a few moments to express our prayers for those who are ill, dear ones, family members, friends, and the many thousands who are struggling simply to keep alive in this time of the pandemic. And so please join us in chanting the Shabbat.
Shabbat Avotenu Mikor HaBeracha Le'imahotenu. May the source of strength who blessed the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishabera imotenu mikor haberacha le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. Let me be a little kinder, let me be a little blinder to the faults of those about me. Let me praise a little more, let me be when I am weary, just a little bit more cheery. Think a little more of others and a little less of me. Let me be a little kinder, let me be a little blinder to the faults of those about me. Let me praise a little more, let me strive a little harder to be better at tomorrow. Think a little more of others and a little less of me. Think a little more of others and a little less of me. Announcements tomorrow, just a reminder, our Shabbat morning Torah study and a few morning blessings, 11 a.m. Zoom.
That and the other thing.
Oh, that's a good idea.
All the way to the edge, practically.
Good Shabbos.
Shabbat Shalom. Well,
Shabbat Shalom.
Hi, we're back again, as you can see, and so are you. It's great to be with you in your home. And
We got to stop. The shoes are in the way.
Now what?
How did that happen?
Huh?
The shoes are in the way.
I don't see issues. Okay, one more time. Okay, you started.
Okay, move your chair a little. Wait. The candles are blocked. I can't figure out
Which
why.
way?
I can't really figure out why. Is it better?
I don't know.
Let me just see if we can.
I'm going to have candles on my head.
I know. This worked. Okay. Just get up for a second.
Why don't you move the candles to
That side.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
All the way to the edge, practically.
Give it a shot. Now I have an.
Shalom, good Shabbos to all of you. I hope you've had a week of good health and that you're still managing to deal with this most unusual and challenging situation. Mostly just to take good care of yourself and to be patient. I think that's about the best we can do. So lately, I know I've been talking quite a bit about some of the major issues that are facing our country. Of course, Black Lives Matter, and also, of course, the pandemic itself. But I thought that today I'd like to change the subject somewhat and get back to some basic Jewish values, if I may. There's a word that almost all of us know from Yiddish. Even if you don't know any Yiddish at all, you probably know this word because it's practically in common usage in the English language. And the word is mensch, which basically means a person who possesses common decency. And the practice of common decency has a name that's called menschlichkeit. So a mensch practices menschlichkeit. I think most of you know that. And one of the most interesting questions that we deal with is how do people acquire their personal qualities and traits? Of course, psychologists and psychiatrists have discussed this and argued about it for many years, nature versus nurture and so forth. I don't know that we'll ever know the actual answer or the correct answer, but I do know that from our Jewish perspective, when we say that someone is a mensch, we don't have to spell it out. We know what that means, regardless of where it has come from. But the bigger question is, can one become a mensch? And that actually was one of the first sermons I ever read many years ago by a well-known Detroit rabbi, a conservative rabbi of blessed memory, Morris Adler, who wrote a sermon called On Becoming a Mensch. And I've remembered over the years, and I still have some questions about it, because the real question is, can one become a mensch, or is that simply something that is instilled within us? And I wish I knew the answer for sure, but I wanted to share with you a few examples of menschlichkeit, and then to discuss it just a little bit more. Perhaps you read in the New York Times a few weeks ago that the comedian Steve Martin wrote a very beautiful and loving tribute to Carl Reiner, who had passed away not long ago. The two of them had done numerous movies together, and Carl Reiner had directed him in some of his earliest movies. And this was a reflection on Carl Reiner as a decent human being. Steve Martin didn't use the word mensch, but I'm sure that's what he meant. And I wanted to quote to you just a portion of this very lovely tribute. And it goes like this. Steve Martin says, or wrote, I've heard several people say Carl was like a father to them. But to me, Carl was not fatherly. He was exemplar. 5 years and 4 films later, I was a different person because of a subtle osmosis of traits from Carl to me. Carl's manner on the set taught me how to behave on the set. His interaction with people gave me a template of how to be better, nicer, how to lead with kindness. His directorial results were the same as the master directors that were nastier people that I ran into later in my career. He also taught me about modesty. I called him late one evening to discuss the next day's shooting, and I asked, Steve meaning, of course, am I interrupting you? And he said, no, I'm just lying here going through my litany of failures. When I perform comedy, Steve Martin continues, I can still hear echoes of my influences coming through. Jack Benny, certainly, Mike Nichols and Elaine May, Lenny Bruce, Steve Allen, and Carl Reiner, too. But it's not Carl's comedic advice I cherish. Rather, it was how he affected my everyday life. The part that has nothing to do with movies or acting. Sometimes I deal with people in meetings, social dinners, and plain old conversations with a buoyancy foreign to me, and I realize, oh, that's the way Carl would have done it. So Carl, he concludes, I raise my glass of seltzer and flip through the Rolodex of words that apply to you. Talent, energy, wisdom, humor. But for me, one of your qualities stands out that is not often cited in the legacy of the famous, and that is decency. All along, it was your decency that infused and invigorated your incredible gifts. Thank you, goodbye, and a salute, Carl Reiner. As you can tell, it makes me happy simply to read this to you and share it with you. It's incredibly heartwarming, and all I can say is I wish I had known the man. And now a second story, or anecdote actually, that you also may have read recently in the newspapers or Wikipedia, a true story. It's about these 2 men from Wisconsin, a small town in Wisconsin. Their names are Thomas Cook and Joseph Feeney, and they have been buddies like forever. And in 1992, they promised each other that if one of them should ever win the Powerball jackpot, that they would split the lottery winnings with the other. And Mr. Cook, by the way, the town is Elk Mound, Wisconsin. They say it has a population of 50 if you count the dogs and cats. Anyway, Mr. Cook kept that 28-year-old agreement when he purchased the winning ticket for a $22 million jackpot at a gas station in town. And this is what he said. He said, wow, it was quite an experience. When I read the first 2 or 3 numbers, I kind of froze, he said in an interview with the Wisconsin lottery. And then Mr. Cook, who said he was eating breakfast at the time, passed the ticket over to his wife, and she froze, of course. And after realizing that he had won, Mr. Cook called his friend Joseph Feeney. And Mr. Feeney of a nearby town said he thought that Cook was joking. The 2 men had bought lottery tickets every week for the past 28 years, but of course neither of them thought they would actually win. Well, that happened many years ago, Mr. Cook said of the promise, but a handshake's a handshake, man. So the 2 fellows chose the cash option, and they split it evenly, just as they had shaken hands about it 28 years ago. I think it's a fabulous story. It's so typical of small-town America and of great qualities of simple human decency. I really wonder how many others would have done exactly the same thing. I hope many, but who knows. So, two great examples of Menschlichkeit from very different environments. And we're left with the same question. How does one become a Mensch? And I'm still uncertain about this, but I want to give you a few insights. I think the key word here is become. That it is a process for most of us. Yes, it's true that there are some out there who just seem to be possessed of that gift. It comes naturally and beautifully to them. But that's not true of most people. So where does it come from? Does it come from the way we were raised by our families, the example of teachers or mentors, or books that we've read? I suppose it could be all of those. But the key word remains becoming. Becoming. There is a great phrase, or statement rather, in the Pirkei Avot, which is part of the Mishnah. And I want to give it to you. It's very brief. And, excuse me, but it's in the masculine language, so I will reinterpret it shortly. It goes very simply. In a place where there are no men, you should strive to be a man. Well, let me put it differently and more appropriately to our times. In a place where no one is acting like a human being, strive to be a mensch. I think that's a good way to put it. So again, the word that comes to mind here is strive. I had a wonderful friend as a rabbi, who was a rabbi rather, years ago. He's long since passed away, sadly. And he happened to have a fabulous sense of humor. His name was Rabbi Morton Cohn. And he said to me one day, kind of cynically, but really humorously, he says, you know, Michael, the most important thing in life is sincerity. And once you can fake that, you've got it made. Now to put it in a little more serious terms, I would say this phrase comes to mind. Fake it until you make it. It doesn't come from the Talmud, I promise you. And I think that that has a lot of truth to it. That we admire people such as Carl Reiner, and we do our best to emulate them. And when we do, a kind of osmosis can occur, and we become the better for it. I have a favorite Jewish book that I have shared with many students over the years for their bar and bat mitzvah, and also with their parents, by the way. And I also include this book in the reading list for those who are deciding whether they wish to become Jewish or not. The name of the book is The Book of Jewish Values. It's by Rabbi Joseph Telushkin, who is an Orthodox rabbi by training, but really writes and speaks in a very universal style that's accessible to everybody. You certainly do not need to be Jewish to grasp what Rabbi Telushkin has to say. And the essence of this book, the Book of Jewish Values, you might even look at it as a textbook on ways to strive to become more mensch-like in our everyday lives. This book has 365 little chapters, and so as you can imagine, it's for the purpose of reading one a day and perhaps thinking about it, perhaps even talking about it. And I wanted to give you just a few examples of chapter titles. What to look for when you are considering a spouse. Another one, what to do if you know you have a bad temper. And now continuing, When is it appropriate to pass on a rumor? Here's one we could all use. What good things happened to me this week? We need to remind ourselves of that, don't we? When, if ever, is it permissible to lie? For example, are there lies that can be justified for reasons of humility or to protect privacy or simply not to harm others? Another question, or another subject rather, treating people who have disabilities with respect. Another one, feed your animals before you feed yourself. Next, tipping even those whose faces you never see. What if you could read your obituary today? What might it say about you? Never threaten your children with physical punishment. Do not embarrass your children. Not everything that is thought should be said out loud. When you are angry with your spouse, try putting things in their perspective. Make sure you have a friend who can criticize you. The prohibition against being a snoop. Apologizing to your children. And the last one I want to mention, which is actually the first one in the entire book, so worth reading, very simply, what should go through your mind when you hear a siren? Such a simple and perfect question. I'm not going to give you the answers to any of these. You have to provide them for yourselves. But essentially, as you just heard, this is a kind of a manual on the process of striving to be a mensch. And so we come back to the original question, can a person be taught to be good? Simple answer is that the motivation for us as Jews is that these are behaviors that we are simply expected to do because this is what our Jewish religion tells us are our obligations, the mitzvot, as Jews and as human beings. And yes, if we have to fake it until we make it, I have confidence that in time, perhaps none of us will rise to the full height of a Karl Reiner, but I do believe that we can be more menschlichkeit in our behavior day by day and year by year. And let me just add this. Should it happen that one of you hits the Powerball lottery and wins millions of dollars, I am certain that you'll want to share it with all of us in the congregation. Shabbat Shalom. Good Shabbos to all of you. So as you must remember, almost every week I remind us that it's not permissible to be sad on Shabbat, against the rules. It's a mitzvah to be happy. So what better way to express joy in Shabbat than with the well-known hymn and prayer, Yismechu b'malchutecha. Those who observe Shabbat shall call it a pleasure and oneg. Yismechu.
1, 2, 3, 4. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי שבת וקורא עונג. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי שבת וקורא עונג. מקודש שבי שבת you sing. Shabbat, kulam yispehu, v'yitangu mituvecha. Shabbat, Shabbat, yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg. Yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg. Bereishit Shabbat Zecher Lemasei Bereishit Shabbat.
As we turn now to the conclusion of our service and are about to recite the Kaddish, these are the yortzites that we remember this week. Howard Hammerman remembers Thomas Hammerman. Ron Adelson remembers Maisia Adelson. Our Temple family remembers Leonard Steinberg, Ralph Woolman, Sarah Ziegelman, Naomi Freeman, Mo Buckhalter, Arthur Oppenheimer, and Bill Mintz. And as well, we're sad to announce the recent death of Barbara Juliana, the grandmother of Hillary Juliana. She passed away this past Monday. In their memory, as well as in memory of all of our dear ones that we've lost in times gone by, we join together in the Kaddish. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash, Shemei Rabba, B'yalma divrach Hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, B'chayechon u'b'yomechon, u'v'chayei echol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agolah u'b'zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabba mivorach, Li'olam u'lo Maya, Yitbarach v'yishabach, Yitpo'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, V'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, Shemei d'Kudisha b'richu. Le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechemata, damiran di'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim, Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, huyaseh shalom, Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn, and bring comfort to all who are bereaved. And let us say, Amen.
Oseh shalom b'imromav, huyaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru, imru, Amen. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'imru, Amen. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shalom. We wish you all a good Shabbos, and when the new week begins, a good new week ahead, with strength and continued health, and hope, one day at a time. And it's great to be with you in this way and make Shabbos together. And Rabbi Sternfield, there's a couple of announcements.
So as we conclude our Shabbat Eve service, we're going to hear a version of Adon Olam. It actually is a Sephardic melody from the Jews of France. How about that? And so you'll probably be able to catch on to the melody and sing along with the cantor. Here we go.
And with Albert, thank you. Choir, sing extra loud. Adon Olam Hashem Malach B'terem kol Yitzir Nivra Leheit Nasa V'chefso kol Azar Melech Shemo Nikra Azar Melech Shemo Nikra Ve'acharei Kichlot HaKol Levado Levado Yimloch Nora Ve'hu היה והוא עובר והוא יהיה בתפארה והוא יהיה בתפארה והוא אחד ואין שני אין שני להמשילו להכבירה בלי ראשית בלי תכלית ולא העוז והמשרה ולא העוז והמשרה. Shabbat Shalom, good Shabbos. Have a great week. And just a couple of announcements. reminding you tomorrow morning is Shabbat, so join us for Torah study and some brief Shabbat morning blessings on Zoom. And if you are interested, please let Rabbi Sternfield know. You'll get a Zoom invitation at about 11:15 and a copy of the Parashah, the Torah portion, you will receive at the end of this evening. We're in the book of Deborah. And tomorrow, 5 p.m., we have a chance for a schmooze and a wine and cheese get-together, which means BYOB, literally, bring your own bottle, BYOC, bring your own cheese, but it'll be a good chance to visit on Zoom and conclude Shabbat with a little bit of Havdalah. And I think that's it. Anything else? Continuing to collect, we are for the Manatee Food Bank, Wednesday mornings, if you want to drop off non-perishable food, especially proteins. Front door of the shul, ring the doorbell. Mary Beth will come out and retrieve them from you in her mask, of course. Okay, Shabbat Shalom again. Good Shabbos. Thank you for being with us. Sei gesund.